This information is going to be explosive! Hey noobs, I'm Lauren with New Media Rights, and this is the first episode of LAGD. That's short for Legal Assistance for Game Developers. Get it? New Media Rights is making these videos to prevent you from lagging behind in getting your game finished. That's the joke. Alright, so this first episode is in 3 parts, and it's about confidentiality agreements. But they're not really called that. Or non-disclosure agreements, but unless you want to be really long-winded, they're not really called that either. This episode is about NDAs. NDAs can be written to limit all sorts of things. They can make it so your collaborators can't run off with your ideas without your permission. They can keep people you're working with from telling others how much you're paying them, and they can prevent people on your team from talking to the press too early and spoiling all your secrets. At the same time, anyone who knows anything about NDAs knows that they're difficult to enforce, and sometimes they're not even worth the paper that they're printed on. So, why in the world are we spending a whole first episode talking about them? I'll tell you, the big question that the series will answer are in 4 parts. So, when should game developers like you consider getting an NDA, and when are they not so useful? Question 2 is, how should developers put an NDA together if you can't afford a lawyer? Question 3 is, if you need an NDA, when does it make sense to put one together yourself, and when should you get a lawyer? And the final question 4 is, what the typical problems you might run into after your NDA is written. And I swear that if you watch all 3 episodes of this set, you'll learn the answer to all of those questions. I'm just so excited about thinking about these great questions, aren't you? Question 1. When should game developers consider getting an NDA? NDAs are most important during the creative development process, when you're bouncing off ideas from each other or trying to recruit people to work on your game. Since copyright laws won't protect your ideas from being taken without permission, an NDA is the only way to legally stop someone from taking the ideas that you present to them. Now, I know what you're thinking. You trust all of the people on your team, all the people that you're working with, so there's no need for any agreements up front, right? Well, here are 3 examples. The first is a situation where an NDA would probably not be that useful. The second 2 situations are where NDAs would be useful. So example number 1. Say you're a programmer making a Flash game, you're being paid a few $1,000s to make it, and it'll only take a month to do. You decide that you want to hire an artist for 2 weeks, so your characters aren't just a bunch of stick figures. This is a situation where it might not be worth your time to put together an NDA. Example number 2. Say that you and some buddies have an idea for a game, but all you have between you 3 is a writer, an artist, and a business guy. As much as you want, you can't make your game without a programmer, so you have to hire someone that you meet off the internet. A programmer does have the capability to make a game function without any real art expertise. I'm not saying it would be good, I'm just saying that he could do it. So this means that you're giving a complete stranger full control over the means for the production of your game, as well as all of the ideas about what makes your game so good. If this programmer goes AWOL, you don't have much that you can do. But if you had the programmer sign an NDA beforehand, you could point to that document and force him to either not release his version of the game, or at least force him to share credits and profit with you. Example number 3. Let's say that one person on your 3-person team, artist, has a buddy at the big publishing company. They're buddies. So you're not going to publish your game yourselves, but instead you're going to give it to your friend, the artist, who has a connection at the big publishing company. But as, say, a rule of the deal, you can't take advantage of that opportunity right away, and you have to wait 4 months. Whether you like it or not, your friend at the big publishing company now controls distribution for your game. Your friend could decide that he wants all the credit and the money, and he could give the big publishing company all of the information they need to remake your game during that 4-month waiting period. Also, one of your programmers you hired could forget that the game's not public yet, and he could disclose the information about your game to the press, or he could write about it on his blog. That could lead to someone copying your idea during the 4 months that you're waiting. Also, one of your programmers could get tired of waiting for royalties since the game isn't published yet, so he could reuse that code that you paid him to make for his own slightly different but competing game. All of these problems could be potentially solved with an NDA. Of course, if you keep watching, you'll also learn that there are a lot of problems that NDAs can't solve, But I hope that those examples get you started thinking about whether or not you need an NDA. Enough of me telling you about stuff. We were able to get interviews with successful indie game developers who talked to us about their games, how they got started in putting their teams together, and how they found trustworthy people to work with. After that, check out the next part in our episode where we discuss how to put an NDA together when you can't afford a lawyer, as well as situations that call for an NDA.